All righty, gang, welcome. Your saltwater guide, Captain Dave Hansen. I have a really, really special show for you today. We got one of my very best friends in the whole wide world, Todd Mansur, going to be joining us today. And this is a tribute to Todd's boss. And you're probably going to witness Todd and I crying on this show, gang, because this is a very emotional show for me. And I know Todd was just on here a month and a half ago, but this is a special day today. We've got to talk. Todd lost his boss yesterday. Very emotional day for Todd. And it's going to be an emotional show. So let's bring the legend Todd Mansur in here and let's talk about Ralph for a little while, Todd. Come on in. Hey, buddy.
Hey, guys. Yeah, pretty amazing man. You know, in this world, in this career that I've chosen and this life that we've lived on the water, it's very rare that you meet somebody like Ralph Brandy. And I've been very fortunate. I've hit so many balls out of the park when it comes to working for great people that I've ended up being on the same boat with the same owners for years after years. I mean, it started off, as a kid working for your dad and your family, David, and then eventually graduating into running the Sum Fund for near a decade. And then I was picked up by Bo Boyd at Disney, and I worked for him for near a decade. But nothing compares to having somebody like Ralph Brandy as your boss and your friend and your mentor for over 20 years.
Yep, Ralph was, I'll let you grab yourself here. Ralph was a giant part of Todd's life, a giant part of Dana War Sport Fishing. And Ralph was just a super special human being, and he treated you like you were his son. He treated you, the love that you two shared with each other was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, in fact, I was trying to, some of the top pictures of Ralphie and I, Ralphie on his boat. And I started thumbing through pictures from the last 23 years with Ralphie. And as I was going through all these pictures on my computer and my phone, and in between each photo of Ralphie, I'm thumbing through pictures of my family and my lifestyle and my luxuries of life and the things that I've accomplished. And in between every picture of Ralphie that I looked at was a picture that wouldn't be there if it weren't for Ralphie. I mean, he gave me so many just absolute wonderful opportunities.
Yeah, he did. He got to watch your boys grow up. Not your first two boys, but he got to watch all four of them grow up.
So when I met Ralphie, I was running the Captain Hook 2 for Bo Boyd. And we had this guy named Steve Babbage, we called the Bear, booking charters for us. And man, this guy, he could sell, ice cream to an Eskimo. I mean, he was one heck of a salesman. And so he had that boat booked 7 days a week during the season. And we're getting ready to load up. Same dock I'm at right now. We'd load passengers about 9 o'clock at night for our overnight trips. This is 1997. And down comes these four guys, Ralph Brandy, Jim Peterson, Rob Vogelsang, and their friend Barry. And, just to me at the time, it's just another group of guys. We take them out fishing like we take everybody fishing. And lo and behold, these guys turn out to be the biggest part of my life. And not just Ralphie, but all three of them. So here in a few minutes, actually, LA, there's a picture of the three of them without Barry, Jimmy, Rob, and Ralph next to a big tuna. These three
Yeah.
guys have been the biggest part of my life than anybody else. I mean, so Rob Vogelsang, who's on the left, I've known since I was 15 years old. David, he used to come out fishing with Mike Thompson and us on Larry Burson charters on the Amigo. The first time he met me, I had orange hair and was breakdancing out in front of the Jolly Roger. And yes, I did that, folks. And he would come out albacore fishing with us, and I've known him ever since. So, but I don't recognize him. He comes down to the boat, and Jim Peterson comes down to the boat, and Jim Peterson, who's on the right, is really Ralph's right-hand man, and everything they did in business, these guys were brilliant. They were the brains and the success behind Microsemi, which in the end ended up selling for over $10 billion. These guys really knew what they were doing. A publicly traded company that just went absolutely perfect. Jim Peterson is married to Sheila Bellinger. Gary Bellinger worked for Dana Worth Sport Fishing, her brother. He was part owner of a boat that ran out of here, the Patrician, for years. The triple screw that you and I have talked about in some of our podcasts. And she was my babysitter my entire childhood. And now here comes this guy that I've never met before down the dock to come out fishing with me on the Captain Hook 2. So I've got these three amigos, Ralph, Jimmy, and Rob, coming down to the dock. We take them out fishing, and their buddy Barry, who I've lost contact with, but he's just an amazing guy. Did a lot of trips with them. I think he lives in North Carolina or South Carolina now. But Ralph, Jimmy, and Rob were the cornerstone of everything. These guys, they got on the boat that day. By the way, I got to tell you, we had 104 albacore on that trip. We were albacore fishing overnight, fishing the butterfly, and on that trip, it was. I mean, you know how good albacore fishing got, David. I mean, it was just in the corner, eating everything, every bait. It got down to where we were fishing them just on, just catching them on swim baits because we ran out of bait. But just an absolute first impression with these guys. And they started booking the boat every couple of years. Every couple of weeks during the season for a few years. And then as Barton Boyd, the CEO of Consumer Products at Walt Disney, and an amazing man, and another mentor in my life, retired, they wanted to try to fit me somewhere without just leaving me high and dry. So Ralph Brandy, Jim Peterson, Bo Boyd, and Kelly Boyd all invested in buying the Mirage from Glenn, Steve Lasley's boss, to let me go sword fishing, because at that time in 2002, the sword fishing was phenomenal. We were just knocking the piss out of them. And we had great pilots, we had great coverage, and we had great experience, and we had great conditions. And so they bought into that, the four of them. And the deal was I would fish the season sword fishing. And then they would come out once in a while during the season, enjoy the trip, catch whatever was out there. They held permits themselves so they could be on the boat. And then in the off season, we'd take the boat down to Mag Bay, Cabo, and go fishing. And that was working out great. And then around 2005, the Microsemi Corporation was going through the roof. These guys were hitting home run after home run after home run. And they came to me and said, "Hey, listen, kid, we've got a plan for you. We've got an idea. Why don't we sell this swordfish boat? You've been working your ass off 7 days a week, putting in, just an immense amount of time to make it all work. We're proud of you, but, we'd like to buy something that you could run and operate. Maybe we fish some tournaments. Maybe we, do some traveling." And we ended up buying the boardroom. That was in 2005.
And you're on it right now, right?
And I'm on it right now. Yep. I'm sitting in the wheelhouse right now. And so we started off, just enjoying, monthly trips, and then waiting for that first season to come for fishing marlin tournaments. Now, for a lot of you that are new to the sport fishing industry in Southern California, we had an amazing tournament series in Southern California for decades, which there's a few charity tournaments, but there's nothing like what we had back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. It really fell apart around 2008 when the economy crashed. That was enough to tip it off, and it was over. But in 2005, when we bought the boat, they were still going strong. The Catalina Classic, the Rosies, the Zane Grey, the San Diego Offshore Invitational, all these tournaments were drawing in, hundreds of anglers and hundreds of boats. And it was very exciting for Ralph and myself and Jimmy to be a part of this. And then we went and we started after those tournaments, which started the first week of September and went to the last week of September. We'd get ready there that last week of September after that tournament. We'd pack our bags, load the boat up with supplies, and we'd head down and we'd fish the Bisbees. And we did this for years. And we had just an amazing time. In fact, I wish I could have found it, but Michael Folks has a video of Ralph on the back deck of the boardroom in the Mazatlan El Cid tournament. And he interviews Ralphie, and the interview is classic because it explains Ralphie very well. They're asking him, Ralphie, how he loves these tournaments, how he loves the Mazatlan tournament. He says, this Mazatlan tournament is exceptionally fun. The way that it's put on, the captain's meetings, the casino night, all these things are fun. And if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't be doing it, but we are having fun. It was just a great interview with him. But and as we started going into this, this life of Ralphie in the boardroom now, Ralphie and I started to become very close. Ralphie's passion for fishing was unsurpassed. If Ralphie was happy catching anything. If we could go sand dab fishing, he was happy. If we went hoop netting, he was happy. If we went out and just caught rockfish, he was happy. And I shouldn't say just caught rockfish. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I think it was one of Ralphie's favorite things to do. And the opener was amazing, by the way. The quality that we had out on the 14-mile bank was unbelievable. But he loved every aspect of fishing. But as we started to mature in the way that we operated the boardroom, Ralphie found a love for a destination that I have loved for years, Magdalena Bay. And fishing out of Mag Bay or Santa Maria Bay, and I think we have a picture, Elliot, of the boat coming out of Santa Maria Bay. There's Ralphie fishing some marlin there. Where's that picture of Ralphie? There it is. So this picture was taken by Barry Breitenberg and sent to me. And this is probably my favorite destination I've ever been to by boat. I absolutely love this place. It's not just the fishing, it's everything about it. It's the families that work in the in the fish camps. It's the guys that are at the surf camps. It's the camaraderie there. It's the other boats and the way that we interact with each other while we're there, the serenity of it all. But I think most importantly, it is not one bit been exploited by anything. There's no hotels, there's no water, there's no electricity, but yet you have communities that live in these fishing villages that are some of the happiest people on earth. Now, Dave, you spent a little bit of time.
Let me talk for a second.
Yeah.
So Todd and I were going to Cabo. Todd was on the boardroom and I was on a 43 Michelson. We were going to Cabo to go fish the Bisbees. And we both leave real early because we're going to fish our way down. And we're buddy boating. And he's out at San Benitas and I'm at Cedros. And we're down in the midst of it. And we stumble onto some wide open yellowtail fishing at Cedros. And I called Todd. He's over at Bonitas. And he comes flying around the corner and he gets over there just about the end of the bite, catches a couple. I got Dwayne Diego on his very first trip to Cabo on a boat. And I got another guy who's a big time underwater filmer, videographer. And it's just him, me, Dwayne, and Paul. And we're having fun catching these yellowtail, and we're cruising along, and the bite's over now, and we're headed down. We're going to go fish Natividad, and we're going to go fish some calico bass. And Todd's back behind us about 4 or 5 miles. We get just to the Boiler Rocks on the inside part of Natividad, and the boat just stops, just absolutely stops running. So I called Todd, and he's coming to save me. And we are inside these Boiler Rocks at Natividad, and we shouldn't even be in there, let alone broke down in there. Somehow I get the boat started again, one engine, and we make a plan. Todd's going to keep his radio on, but he's going to keep on going and get to Turtle Bay. And I'm going to get into Turtle Bay, and we're going to get in there and figure out what's wrong with the boat. We finally get in there about 2.5 hours after Todd was in there. We both grabbed the mooring balls back when it was Annabelle. Ruben sold the fuel out there. God rest Ruben's soul. We get the boat taken apart. We find out it's something I can't fix. Todd can't fix it, even though Todd's like a magician that's fixing stuff, and I can fix stuff. We can't figure it out. Todd leaves. Lets a bunch of our buddies know that Dave's having problems and he's stuck in Turtle Bay. I spent 3 days in Turtle Bay, and then somehow we get this thing running again, and we take off, and we're cruising down. We're going to right where this boardroom is setting right now. That is where we're going. It's called Santa Maria Bay. It's one of the most beautiful bays on the planet Earth. The ocean's flat, glassy, calm in there. You can usually look out, Todd, and you can see the giant swells while we're sitting in there. It's 20 feet deep forever in there, gang. And the beach is powdered sugar sand with big sand dollars the size of dinner plates all over the beach in there. It's just spectacular. That's where we're headed. I'm 90 miles from there at 8 o'clock at night, and the boat just stops running. No way to start it, no way to do anything. The boat stops running. We are in the middle of nowhere, on our way to nowhere. And for the first time in my career ever, my life, I had to start calling on the radio Mayday. So I set my alarm every 15 minutes. I would call Mayday. The Red Rooster 3, Andy Cates was down there, and Bradley was on the first string. Those guys knew what was going on, but they were both in the beginning of their trips. They both said if there was a problem and it was going to be a matter of life and death, they would come save me. But just keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully someone answers you. At 11:30 at night on my Mayday call, I get a call back. Greg DeStefano's anchored up about a half a mile behind where Todd is right now. That's a giant mountain. There's no reason in the world that the radio should be going through that mountain. He goes, Hanson, is that you? And I about fell out of my chair. I've been calling every 15 minutes for 3 hours trying to find somebody. And he goes, yeah, Mansur told me you were having some problems. We're going to get out of here in a few minutes. We'll see you up there in the morning. He drove 90 miles up, came up, grabbed me, and towed me all the way back to Santa Maria, dropped my anchor in Santa Maria, and sat there for 16 days. And that's a story for when I have Dwayne Diego on. We'll get into the depths of that story. But I just wanted to throw this in there. No water, no food. For 16 days, we were eating lobsters like they were apples. Todd's buddies on the Pongas were coming out checking on us and giving us some crabs and some lobsters and some fish, but we didn't have nothing. And we'll talk about more of that later.
Yeah, that was Ralphie's favorite destination, and I got the privilege of taking Ralphie to a lot of different places. I mean, gosh, the memories that we had together from here to almost Central America were just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we've done so many different things together, but I think the favorite place for Ralphie always in the back of his mind was Santa Maria Bay. And he didn't mind. Now, you guys, a lot of you may not think that, Santa Maria Bay is Mag Bay, but we call it all Mag Bay. But true Magdalena Bay through Entrada around Belchers and into the Bahia of Magdalena is a different place, and it's nice, but it doesn't have all the things that we can do at Santa Maria Bay. So Santa Maria Bay is basically like this little bay on the outside of the island. So if you don't know this, the Punta Lazaro, all the way from Boca de Soledad, all the way to Entrada is one big island. It's humongous, and it's very narrow, very thin. You can look at it on your chart, but it's one big island. And Santa Maria Bay is basically on the south end of that island. And it gives real great protection, but it has some spectacular opportunities. In the mangroves, we can go in there and fish halibut. And one of Ralphie's favorite things was going in there in the dinghy. We'd throw the skiff in the water, grab a couple rapalas or a couple swim baits, but the rapalas worked best. We'd go in there and we troll for halibut. And for a lot of you guys that have never seen this, we're trolling in 6 feet to 15 feet of water, and the halibut just absolutely climb on it. I think you've probably done it, Dave. And it was hard to get Ralphie to stop. It's like, Ralphie, we've got enough, because he loved these things, and he just wanted to stack them like cordwood and eat every one of them. And the way that he prepared them is he would take them back to the boat, and we'd head and gut them. And if they were too big, we'd cut them into chunks, and they'd be all scaled, and he would flour them, and then he would fry them whole. And man, they were just absolutely fantastic. But one of his favorite things to do, and it was sad in the last couple of years as his health declined, it was really difficult to get Ralphie in there and successfully take him halibut fishing, because he really loved it. But outside of the anchorage there around Punta Hughes and inside the bay there, Ralphie used to sit and troll from next to me in the tender and count the different species. I mean, there was days where we'd have 14 different species, from catching orangemouth corvina to having a variety of different snappers, China masks, Sierra mackerel, yellowtail. I mean, it was just an amazing variety of trevallies, of fish that were in there, triggerfish, hogfish, and he just absolutely loved it. So it again went back to, this thing that he just loved fishing. And one of the things that Ralphie gave us the opportunity to do, and I've got Eugene in here with me. Say hi, Eugene.
Hey, gang. How you doing? Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Hey, buddy. Good to see you.
One of the things that he gave us the opportunity
thanks,
to do
man.
down there that most guys didn't do is to fish that area how we wanted to fish it. Ralphie didn't care if we went out and caught, 100 marlin in a day. And by the way, on that picture right there, with Ralphie hooked up, Elliot, you can put the two guys up. That's Ralphie and his buddy Lloyd. Lloyd came with us on just about every single trip that Ralphie did to Baja for at least a couple of weeks. Lloyd, the one that's on the other side of Ralphie, this last season got a 432-pound blue marlin, and that was on Macaira 16 on a rail rod. And he was 81 years old. But on this particular trip right here, on this day right here, I think we released 32 marlin for these two guys, and Ralphie would always say, not another stinking marlin. But he still loved fishing them. He loved catching them. But I think that, got to the point to where when we started getting multiples and they had to chase them around, he'd just hand them off to one of the crew. But in his younger days, he'd run to the bow and pitch a bait. He just absolutely loved it. But the way we fished Mag Bay wasn't just to go down there and fish marlin, which so many of these operators and captains and owners want to do. They just want to go down there, fish marlin, catch a few wahoo on the way down, and then pop into Cabo San Lucas and party, and then have somebody bring the boat home. Not Ralphie, not the boardroom. What we did was we went down there, we fished the ridge on the way down. We fished the whole peninsula on the way down. It had exceptional fishing, like you were talking, Dave. Back in the days when we could fish Cedros Island, we'd start off there fishing yellows, and then Punta San Pablo, we'd fish yellows and bottom fish and look for tuna, and we'd start Dorado and wahoo fishing there as well. We even catch wahoo all the way up, outside of Natividad and Cedros. But we'd fish the ridge down the first day. If we had good weather, we might anchor up or sit on the chute to get 2 days out of it. stack up a bunch of wahoo, and then get into Santa Maria Bay. And then every day would be a different day. We'd talk to Ralphie, like, Ralphie, what are you thinking? And Ralphie would say, you know what? Let's go grouper fishing tomorrow. All right, we go grouper fishing, go catch a bunch of grouper. Next day, Ralphie, I think we should go look for Dorado. We'd go Dorado fishing the next day. Hey, Ralphie, what do you think? It's a little bumpy. Let's stay in the bay. Let's go fish in the bay. We'd go, throw hard baits and go mess around in the bay. We got to fish everything you could do, everything you could fish for, every way you could fish it, from bottom fishing to inshore coastal fishing. We did it all down there, and it was unique. Ralphie, he would he'd get on the boat, do the trip down with us, and then his plan was we're going to fish for 30 to 40 days, and we're going to just fish Mag Bay for 30 to 40 days, and then I'll get off the boat and go home, and you guys can bring the boat home. And we did that for the last 5 or 6 years, and he just truly enjoyed it. I mean, the wahoo fishing was phenomenal, the tuna fishing, the marlin fishing, the grouper fishing.
Hold on a second. I want to, because you didn't really delve into this enough. I want to let everyone understand this. Look at Todd and I, when we're not driving boats for a living, and Eugene, same way, when he's not working, you know what we want to do? We want to go fishing. And the thing is, when you have an owner like Ralph, he's one of the owners that you can only dream of. Listen, we've all worked. Todd's been blessed. He's worked for some phenomenal fishermen, guys that love to fish but they'd love to see us fish. Most of us have to work for owners that don't understand it. They don't understand the fishing thing. They're just, like you said, one-dimensional. We want to go marlin fishing and we want to go partying. You, Eugene, every deckhand that's ever worked for you has been blessed with the fact that Ralph allowed you to go fishing.
Right.
And that's something we don't get to do 90% of the time. Like, I just ran a trip all the way up from Cabo to San Felipe and back. And I was on the boat for 14 days in some of the most fishiest water on the planet. And we were allowed to fish one day for 4 hours. So I understand what it's like to fish with Ralphie. And you guys were blessed that you got to have him on the boat. Or if he didn't go, he would tell you guys to take the skiff and go fish.
Yeah. There was a lot of times he'd tell me and Eugene, "You guys want to surf today? Go surf." We'd be like, "Yeah." We'd go surf. You guys just want to go fish the skiff? I'm just going to hang out. And, we'd go fish the skiff. But he just enjoyed, I think, even vicariously fishing next to us without even holding the rod. Sometimes he just liked, seeing the excitement that we achieved out of, that type of situation, and the climatic surprise of being able to catch all those different species, and not just, for a captain that goes down there and fishes marlin, it's everything's behind the boat. There's a little bit of stuff casting out in front of the boat, but the captain has to maneuver. It's very rare that the captain gets down there and gets in the cockpit and gets to go fishing.
Todd, Lori Ballinger was just on there. Did you see her?
No.
Right there. You see the question? You read what she's talking about?
Yeah. Thank you, Lori. I was very fortunate. Ralphie was exceptional. He was brilliant. Ralphie was brilliant.
I'll jump in here, Dave. There's something, as Todd brought it up, and I've got 7 trips down to Mag Bay. A lot of that was marlin fishing with Billy and Dick on the Gambler. When I would go and I'd fish with Ralphie in the back, I would fish a junk jig. And what a junk jig to me is the hard jigs, anything that anything's going to bite. Ralphie used to love the concept of the junk jig because we never knew what we were going to catch. And it was all light tackle. We weren't going to catch some trophy. I got a nice slime grouper on it last time we were down there. Other than that, we're catching everything from the spotties in the bay to anything else. Ralphie just loved the bend of the rod and the excitement of what could be coming up. And I think he honestly, as a true, a lot of fishermen, especially with the resources Ralph had, he could have gone anywhere in the world and fished for any one species. Ralphie just loved the game of fishing. He loved, some of my best nights with Ralph were just when we were out hoop netting, just because how much is that net going to clap on the way up, you know, and how much, you know, are we going to get on the cod spot where it's just, you know, pick up, you know, a couple cod real quick, you know, for dinner. And, you know, my whole deal was gill them, gut them, scale them. And we were frying them whole because that's the way Ralphie liked to eat that stuff. And I was so fortunate to come in and meet Ralph in the latter part of the couple of years working with Todd and Travis and being on this boat, you know, coming from other boats in this thing. And in the last decade, you know, I'd never had anybody treat me with the kind of respect Ralph did. You know, I'm just a deckhand. You know, I got my 100-ton. You know, I'm just a deckhand, man. I don't wear an ego about this stuff. And Ralphie treated everyone even keeled. He didn't care. He didn't care who you were. You could have every Marlin tournament trophy on the wall. He didn't care. You know, he was the guy that loved the Pongeros. He was the guy that he treated them the same way he treated us. A level of respect all the way across the board. Ralphie wasn't a man that it didn't matter how much money he had. He still had love and respect for everyone and love and respect for the game of fishing. I've been so fortunate to spend the couple of years I've spent with Todd and Ralph. And I mean, I've done Panama to San Diego. I never had more fun than when I did those Mag Bay trips with Ralph and fishing tight here. We got out and we got on some of those big bluefin the last couple of years. I mean, I've just had amazing adventures with an amazing man, and I'm going to miss him.
Yeah. You know,
yeah, that was it. That was my fish. Ralphie said, that one makes too much noise. Eugene, pull that thing. You know, so that was me and Ralphie and Travis right there. And that fish weighed skosh over 200 pounds.
Yeah, he was so happy that day. I think by the end of that trip, we ended up with limits. We were just knocking them.
Yeah, we left them biting.
We left them biting. It was a lot of fun that day. You know, one of the things that was really unique about Ralphie, you can just see in the pictures here. Look how he's dressed. You know, he's not wearing a $25,000 watch. He's not wearing a $150 shirt. He's wearing a pair of Fishworks shorts that he asked me, hey, can you get me some shorts from Lawrence? You betcha. Ralphie, one of my favorite stories with Ralphie, and by the way, I'll tell a story about this fish here in a minute, but one of my favorite stories with Ralphie was the Crown Royal watch story. So Ralph was a very simple man, but very successful and because of his success, you know, a very wealthy man. But he wore this watch that he would brag about. Instead of wearing a $25,000 Rolex or another name brand that you can think of, Ralphie wore a watch that he got in a box of Crown Royal. He was proud of that watch because it cost him nothing but the Crown Royal that he got to drink and enjoy. And he wore that watch for a long time. He drove the same vehicle. He didn't have a car garage full of cars. He had one car because that was all he needed. He didn't need to show off to everybody everything he had. What was so brilliant about Ralph is the fact that we all knew that he was able to show off, but he didn't. He was just amazing in that way. I mean, like Eugene was saying, the guys in the fish camp, you know, the Pongeros down there, our friend Marcos, there's a picture, Elliot, of Ralphie, me, and Marcos and a marlin hanging. Marcos is a 5th generation lobster fisherman out of Santa Maria Bay. Actually, he's out of Lopez Mateo. Marcos is famous down there with passing boaters from sailboaters at Baja or fishermen coming down on their yachts and fishing. If you pulled into Santa Maria Bay, you've probably met Marcos or you've met one of his boys. The first time I met Marcos, my first son was about 3 years old, and his first son was about 3 years old. He now has Peter, Alex, Marcos Jr., and Frank. Those are his 4 boys. I have Shane, Tyler, Tanner, and Van, my 4 boys. There's Marcos. There's Marcos in the middle.
Compa.
So Marcos was the kind of guy that, you know, he would show up out at the bay while you're anchored. He would come and offer you, you know, would you like some lobster? Would you like, you know, some shrimp? can I get some water from you? Guys, if you go to Santa Maria Bay or Mag Bay and these pongeros come up to you and ask for water and you have a water maker, fill them up, because they can take a 55-gallon drum of water and live off it for 2 weeks. And they don't have water there. They depend on you guys coming in there and helping them out with that water. And if you do, they'll do anything for you. You've gained a friend, and you've gained a security guard for your boat while you're there. There's that 432-pound blue marlin we caught. So Lloyd, all the way to the right, was the angler on this. This was a great day. We've been fishing the ridge, tons of Dorado, a few yellowfin. We picked away at the wahoo, and as we got to the bottom of the ridge, the water was just purple. But we'd been seeing all this bait and all this Dorado everywhere. And I told Eugene and Travis, I had them. All right, it was just Eugene.
Hayden.
It was Hayden. It was Eugene and Hayden. I told him, yeah, Hayden's taking this picture. He wanted to be in that picture. I told him, I said, hey, listen, go ahead and put out a little spread of blue marlin lures. Put out that Zucker 5.5 Guacamayo. I always get bit on that. And then put out, a couple others. And I think they only got 2 of the lures out.
I only got just the Guacamayo out.
Yeah.
I was putting the other one out when that thing bit.
And that thing just exploded on it. It was like the perfect read of the conditions in the water. It just looked like blue marlin water. And anyways, normally we release these fish, but there were circumstances. The COVID pandemic has these guys in these fishing communities, starving. Marcos and his family, who we're talking about, the hurricane just went through and wiped out all their houses. They were flooded. They had nothing, no electricity, no nothing. And my angler is 81 years old. So we decided to boat this fish. We called Marcos and told him we've got food for the whole family. And so we boated this fish and cut it up and fed probably about 30 people for quite some time. This really helped them out a lot. So this fish went to a very good place. It served a great purpose. And it was a great harvest. Look at the beard on me. Boy, I can grow a beard, man. I look like Santa Claus there. Yeah,
that fish was coming up also too. It was on the tired side. It ripped on that. It bit an Okuma, like Todd was saying, a 16.
Yeah.
And it ripped it almost. I had to put a lot of work back into that thing to get the spool back on, just pounding the line back on, because that fish ripped all the way to the knot. And we ended up with Lloyd in a fighting chair in the corner. And ended up, that fish came up and on the leader, you could tell she was tired. It was just going to be a great thing to feed everybody down there with that fish. And that's a fish I'll never forget. The group of us right there and what we did with that fish. We helped clean that fish down, and I could see just the elation and the relief on Marcos Jr. and Frank. That their families were going to be fed from that fish, and that fish was going to really stretch a long way. And that fish is a very special fish to me. That's one of the last real go-gets in the adventures that I speak of that I had with Ralphie and Lloyd and Todd, and Hayden. That was a day as an angler of a lot of stories. I'll never forget that one.
So that right there, that picture, as I went through my photos, that is the very last picture. No, the last one. That's the very last picture that I have of Ralphie. So on this trip here, Ralphie had already been diagnosed with 2 types of cancer. He had ocular melanoma and kidney cancer. And prior to this trip, he had one of his kidneys removed. And 2 days before this trip, Ralphie was undergoing chemotherapy. And he was a tough son of a gun, man. And against everybody's, a judgment, Ralphie wanted to go to Mag Bay. He wanted to go. And he said, I'm going to have chemo and take me about 2 days to recover. And I want to go to Mag Bay. And so we planned the trip, and we cautiously, made sure that everything was going to be hunky dory for him. But we did cut the trip a little bit short. And brought Ralphie back for the first time since 2005. Well, actually going back further, because we had the Mirage down there, 2002, the first time Ralphie had ever done the trip north. As his health on that trip it diminished a little bit. He wasn't doing too good at the time, probably from the medication and the chemo. And he told me that it would be best if we got him home on the boat rather than trying to get him to an airport. So Ralphie did the trip home. We made it home from Mag Bay in less than 50 hours. And we definitely had a fish god on our side because it was pretty bitchin' weather. We planned it out pretty good. I think we had to kind of tuck for a minute or two, but it wasn't very long, and we were able to really just kind of smoke hole it all the way home and got him home. He got medical attention, and they helped him out. He did pretty good for a while until this last week here, unfortunately, when we lost him. But Ralphie was that kind of guy. He was a tough dude. I mean, he didn't let things, slow him down. We had a trip on here when we first got the boat, and we were fishing Catalina Island, and I can't remember where we were. I want to say we were up by like Empire Landing or something, back before the MLPs, and so I might have been Yellowtail Point or something. But anyways, I stopped the boat. We anchor up. I can't remember. I think Chris Delaney was the deckhand. We throw some bait out, and the yellows come up foaming, and the bonita are in there, and and Ralph comes flying out of the salon door and slips and breaks his leg. He breaks his fibula and his tibia just above his ankle. We got to go, Ralphie. We got to get you in. Oh, no. He would not let me take him in. He made us finish the trip. And I just couldn't believe it. By the time I got back here, his personal assistant, Jimmy's personal assistant, Terry Donnelly, had a wheelchair waiting for him at the dock, and then I drove him to the hospital. And he wouldn't go to a hospital. He says, I'm not going to the hospital. They'll make me wait there for hours. I took him to urgent care. And then he ended up having to have surgery. But it was just tough. He didn't want to slow anybody down or miss out on anything because, of any ailment. He was just tough that way. He was tough all the way to the end. But, like going back to talk about, how friendly he was and how wonderful of a man he was. Marcos, who was in that picture holding that marlin. The reason why Marcos caught that marlin that day was because Ralphie says, hey, Marcos has never caught a fish on a rod and reel. He's only caught fish on hand lines. We need to take him out and let him catch a fish on a rod and reel. And now Marcos has probably 8 or 9 rods and reels that we've given him over the years. And all he does is rod and reel. He don't hand line no more. But
Nice.
that was Marcos' first marlin on a rod and reel with me and Ralphie. Ralphie would invite the entire Romero family out on the boat. It was so warm and loving. We'd be in Santa Maria Bay, and I'd have 2 or 3 pongas tied up behind the boat. There'd be 5 or 6, 7 other yachts out there parked. And I know that everybody was always like, man, I wish we had that. I wish that's what we were, able to have those guys in the camp so close and just such family with us. I could use Marcos Ponga anywhere I wanted to go. I fished everything. I mean, the amount of information that I got from Marcos and his family and learning how to fish grouper down there and learning how to fish all these different spots, it was priceless. And it was because of Ralphie. Ralphie said, hey, let's invite them on. Let's invite them for dinner. I mean, the dinners we had on the boat together with all these families down there were just incredible. It made me and Eugene work our butt off because we'd fish from 6 o'clock in the morning, putting baits out, doing whatever we were doing, making sure everybody was happy while, making sure the laundry was done, the toilets were clean, the water maker was running, lunch, breakfast, and then get home, get everything processed, get everything put down, and then have a family of 9 show up on the boat after dinner.
Dinner for 15.
But we would do that for Ralphie. I'd do anything for Ralphie to have him happy. He appreciated it. He just loved having everybody there. He loved that camaraderie. That family. He's just a unique, wonderful, loving person. So this trip right here, this is Ralph's son, Jason. Ralph would have his son fly down. We'd pick him up in Laredo, and when Marcos would pick him up and drive him to either San Carlos or bring him all the way to Santa Maria Bay. And then we put him on the boat, and he just got to see some of the most exceptional fishing. We had the first time Jason came down there and fished, we had 32 striped marlin in one day. and he bought a friend that he worked with. I think his friend who went from learning how to fish walleye somewhere in the Northwest to just absolutely knocking the piss out of the striped marlin. He just couldn't believe it. They were the only 2 anglers that day, and they ended up releasing 32 striped marlin. Look at the smile on Ralphie's face. It says it all. Barefoot in a pair of sweats.
Yeah. Always in a pair of sweats. Always in a pair of sweats.
Yeah. So Ralphie really, he allowed us to do so many different things on this boat that you don't normally see in an operation. So in 2011, Jim Peterson and Ralph Brandy allowed me to take the boardroom from being their private boat where they fished marlin and at marlin tournaments and traveled and did all these exceptional destination fishing trips, to allowing me to build a business for myself and for my family, boardroom fishing charters. And we turned the boardroom into a luxury 6-pack charter boat and became very successful in our operations through Dana Wharf Sport Fishing here in Dana Point, California. If you're interested, we are still operating. You can go to danawharf.com, go to charters, and you can see the boat's profile and come out fishing with us. Ralphie's his legacy will live on. There's Dana Wharf's website right here. We'll get you right to the page here. Go to charters, private charters, and then scroll down. And then
upper right hand.
Yeah, you go back, upper right hand corner.
There you are.
Nope.
That's the current.
Another great boat. Go up a little more. Oh, why am I not there? Go back. Go. There I am. There it is. So this is the boat here. Shows the interior, I think, in here too. It's pretty neat layout on this boat. And we try to make sure that the boat is something exceptional for our passengers, whether you come out and do a half day fishing trip or you do an all day fishing trip with us. We try to make sure that it's your best day on the water. We provide drinks and beverages or snacks and beverages on our half day trips, and we provide all meals on our all day trips: breakfast, lunch, snacks, beverages. Bring your own alcohol if you like to drink. You may know this, may not. Dave and I and Eugene do not drink, as we've chosen that for us, drinking doesn't agree with us. And so we've eliminated that from our bodies for quite some time now. But you can bring your own alcohol on the boat. You can go to danawharf.com, talk to Manny or anybody that answers the phone, and see what our pricing is. But Ralphie allowed this to happen. I mean, this was Ralphie and Jimmy Peterson that allowed this to happen, and they allowed me to continue building up this reputation that I have today, for lack of a better word. They kept Todd Mansur's name going. I mean, I went from, being this guy that did a lot of tournament fishing, very successful, to a guy that, was sword fishing, was very successful, to a guy that was, private fishing successfully, to a guy that was in the sport fishing charter boat industry very successfully. And it's just, he's never held me back. Ralphie let me do, everything that I needed to do to have quality of life for me and my family. I'm the director of education for the Graywell Foundation, and Ralphie, he saw the importance in that. Today, I had 110 students out on the water that, through the Graywell Foundation, myself, Dave Hansen, and Corey Hall founded, allows students to come out with no cost to the taxpayer or the school, and not only study in the classroom, but have a field trip out on the water to see whales and dolphins. Today, we had a megapod of common dolphins and a wonderful gray whale that was literally right outside the mouth of the harbor here on its northbound migration. He allowed me to do that. He allowed me to speak at events. He allowed me to, tell him I've got to take 4 days off because I'm gonna be working at the PCS show. He was that kind of guy that understood the importance of who I was and
Hold on
what
one
it was
second.
going to take. Yeah.
Hold on. Another thing that Ralph did, and Roy Patterson just brought this up. Todd is a cowboy, but we are captains. We're fishermen. We don't have any money, and we didn't take care of our financials when we were young. So we didn't have a phenomenal amount of credit. And the chance of us owning a home or owning a little ranch and having horses and all that would not have ever been possible without the love of Ralph and Jimmy. Those guys propped you up and allowed you to be the best cowboy you could possibly be by helping you buy your home.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely. They paved the way. Like I was saying earlier, I went through 20 years of photos, and in between every photo of Ralphie was my life. And every bit of my life in these last 20 years has been exceptional because of Ralph. It just, his friends, I talked to Rob Vogelsang a lot. Rob Vogelsang is like family to me. He's like Jim Peterson. They have looked at me like a family member, not like an employee or a charter captain or just even a friend. They've looked at me like you do, Dave. You and I are brothers. I mean, I was conceived in your bedroom, just so you know. True story, by the way, guys. Well, that's for another story. But every picture that I looked at was because of Ralph and these guys and the way that they propped me up and helped me through everything. I mean, right now I have my two youngest sons, Van and Tanner. By the way, Van just passed his driving test this morning. Yay! Van's a legal driver. He's been so stressed out on that. But Van is 16 years old. He's my youngest son. And he has a 4.5 GPA. What was our GPA in high school, Dave? We didn't even know because we
go to high school. What was that? Hey, Wild Willie wanted to say something. You see that?
Yeah. Afternoon, Dave and Cap Todd. Miss them days with Ralph. I gave my son one of the reels that you got from him. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Ralph he was extremely generous. He was the kind of guy he would say, Todd, the better I do, the better everybody else does. I want to give back to my friends and my family. I'm a charitable man, but I see that it's better placed over here with you guys than over here in somebody that I don't know. And that's just the way he was, and if a reel or a rod or something financially could help somebody out that he knew, he was the kind of guy that would do that. He was just absolutely generous and just such a wonderful guy, but yeah, he allowed me to become a cowboy. Now Tanner and Van are, they're growing up. Shane's running a boat called he's got the 4 Aces and now he's on the 7 Thunders. He still has both boats, an 80-foot Bertram and a 72 or 73 Choi Lee. So Shane kind of followed in my footsteps. I don't think he's as passionate for fishing, but he has a love for working on boats and operating boats and mechanically taking care of boats. He's very gifted at that. My second son, Tyler's going to be 32 on April 15th, tax day. Don't forget to do your taxes. And you never forget when your son's born on April 15th, what day it is. Tyler is a successful pool business owner. He works for somebody, but he also has his own part of the business where he has a pool cleaning company, Pineapple Pools, and Tyler's doing very well. Both Shane and Tyler traveled all over with Ralphie. He took them both. He took both Shane and Tyler when they were little kids, and they got to see everything that I got to see. They got to go to Puerto Vallarta. They got to go to Mazatlan. They got to go to Mag Bay. They got to fish the Ridge. They got to go to Cabo. And that was because of Ralphie. he allowed me to bring my family and show them these things. And he was just such a wonderful, generous man in that aspect of being very family orientated. And I'm going to miss him. I don't know what I'm going to do without him, to be honest with you. The next chapter of my life, I know is going to be a great chapter. But it's like, if you look at my book cover, it's a great book to read. I have a great book cover, but I don't know what chapter 20 is going to look like. Chapter 19 was pretty awesome, and I'm hoping chapter 20 is going to be pretty awesome too. But I know that the things that Ralph has taught me and the opportunities that he has given me, the charter boat industry, the commercial industry, the private boat industry, the way that Ralphie allowed me to express myself and just be Todd Mansur, I'm sure will carry me through to chapter 20.
I believe it will.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be just fine, my friend.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap this up here. We've been going for an hour solid here, but real quick, there's still an opportunity for all of you to go fishing with Todd. And plus, Todd has a phenomenal business where he helps you to make sure that your boat is in tip-top shape. So when you and your family come down to use it, it actually is going to work. So Todd has that going. He has the boardroom going, and he has his deal with the cetaceans, which are the whales and the dolphins. But gang, if you want to get a hold of Todd, he answers his phone. He gets about 1 million phone calls a day, though, but he'll do his very best. If you need something done on your boat, you give Todd a call. If you want someone to maintain and you don't have to worry about it, when you come down, you just turn the key and start your boat and drive it out. Todd has that business. He's available for consultation, whatever you need. You give Todd a call, and he's not going to slow down just because he lost his mentor of his life. Ralph would be pissed if you stopped. If you just stopped and started sucking your thumb and he would be like, "What's wrong with you, kid?
Yeah.
Get your butt back out there and go do this."
Here's Ralph's favorite line: "Stop stressing over things you have no control over, Todd." That's what you tell me. Stop stressing over things you have no control over. I can't control Ralph not being here. So
right.
What I can control is what I'm going to do next. So guys, David's right. If you guys need anything like that, the exceptional thing about having me consulting you or doing some things that maybe improve the maintenance of your vessel is my network. If you've learned anything from listening to David and I on your saltwater guide, is that I have a network that is surpassing just about anybody I know. So when you go to call somebody to fix something on your boat and you get put on the back burner, calling me helps you get to the front of the line. So we get your stuff done as fast as we can. Our network of people that we deal with to make sure that your boat is ready to go. So you're not going to miss that next bluefin bite. So your family's not going to miss that next trip to Catalina. So you can go out there and watch the sunset while you look at dolphins and whales. Sea to the Saddle Consulting, Boardroom Fishing Charters, and Captain Todd Mansur has got your back. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. My boss, Ralph Brandy, was more than a boss. He was my best friend. He took exceptionally good care of me and my family. And it was the hardest thing to do. I didn't even say goodbye. I said, "Ralphie, I'm going to call you when you feel better, and we'll go fishing." And I walked out of the hospital. That was the last thing I said to him. Because it's not goodbye forever. It's just goodbye for now. So, thanks, Dave.
I love you, Todd. Love you
too.
too. Thank you guys for being on the show today, guys. We're going to leave everybody with that. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to the stories from Eugene and Todd, and try to turn off the news. They're all lying to you. Watch this, share this story with your friends. And
take your kids fishing.
And take your kids fishing. And we'll have another good show for you on Monday. We're going to be talking with Jimmy Kingsmill about binoculars. I'm going to be over on his boat. We're going to do the show from his boat on Monday. So check out Jimmy Kingsmill. Todd and I both get our binoculars from Jimmy. And thank you, Eugene. And thank you, Todd, for making me cry.
Thank you, Dave.
Got to thank Ralphie for it.
Yep. There you go. Little plethora
Good
of
old
pictures.
Ralphie.
Good old Ralphie.
All
Another
right, guys.
shitty
I
day
love
on
you.
the boardroom, he would say.
Another shitty day in the boardroom.
All right.
care,
See you
guys.
later, guys. Thank